What if some of the most powerful natural defenses against infection were not locked behind pharmacy counters, but growing quietly in backyards, forest edges, and forgotten garden corners? While modern people reach for prescriptions at the first sign of illness, our ancestors relied on plants that had proven themselves generation after generation. These were not trendy wellness products. They were survival tools, passed down because they worked. Some of these plants were once kept near every doorstep, hung in kitchens, and carried in travel pouches. Today, most people walk past them without a second glance, not knowing that the weeds they pull or the flowers they ignore once protected families through infections, wounds, and illnesses that could turn deadly. And now, modern research is beginning to explain why many of these old practices lasted for centuries, revealing compounds that challenge bacteria, support the immune system, and help the body defend itself naturally. Today, I'll show you 15 medicinal plants that our ancestors valued above almost any other remedy, plants that were treated like natural antibiotics long before laboratories existed. Stay with me, because number 7 was once sewn into soldiers' bandages during wartime, and the final one grows so commonly that you've probably crushed it under your feet without realizing what it could do. If you want forgotten plant wisdom, practical health science, and self-sufficient living ideas delivered every week, hit that subscribe button now, because you don't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's get into it. Number 1, garlic, the infection fighter. You've seen it in every kitchen, but what you might not know is that garlic was once considered so valuable that ancient soldiers carried it into battle. Workers building monuments were paid in it, and traditional healers used it as their first response to infection. This was not about flavor. This was about survival. Long before anyone understood bacteria, people noticed that garlic seemed to stop wounds from festering, reduce fevers, and help the body fight back when illness struck. Old homesteads kept braids of garlic hanging near the door, not just for cooking, but as a household medicine chest. It was added to poultices for infected cuts, chewed raw during outbreaks of illness, and used in teas when respiratory infections spread through communities. Your traditional healers across multiple continents used garlic in remarkably similar ways, which suggests they were observing the same reliable effects. Modern research has revealed why. Garlic contains a compound called allicin, which forms when the clove is crushed or chewed. Allicin has been studied for its antimicrobial properties, meaning it may interfere with the growth of bacteria, fungi, and even some viruses. Studies indicate that garlic extract can challenge common bacterial strains, and some research suggests it may support the immune system's natural response to infection. It also contains sulfur compounds, antioxidants, and minerals that contribute to overall resilience. People traditionally used garlic by crushing fresh cloves and consuming them raw, often mixed with honey to make it easier to swallow. And others made garlic-infused oils for ear infections or created poultices by mashing raw garlic and applying it to infected wounds, though this requires caution because raw garlic can burn the skin if left on too long. Some added it to broths and soups during illness, believing the heat helped release its benefits while making it gentler on the stomach. If you use garlic topically, test it on a small area first and never leave raw garlic on skin for extended periods. It should not replace professional medical care for serious infections, but as a traditional support for minor issues and immune health, garlic has centuries of use behind it. Think of garlic as the plant that ancient people trusted when they had nothing else, and that modern science is still trying to fully understand. Number 2, echinacea, the immune awakener. This is one of those plants that modern herbalists talk about constantly, but its story goes back much further than the supplement aisle. Native peoples of the Great Plains considered echinacea one of their most important medicinal plants, using it for infections, snake bites, wounds, and illnesses that weakened the body. Early settlers learned from them, and echinacea became a staple in frontier medicine cabinets, valued especially when doctors were days away and families had to manage illness on their own. Traditional use focused on the root and the flower. Healers would make strong teas, chew the root for toothaches and gum infections, or create poultices for wounds that showed signs of infection. It was also used at the first sign of respiratory illness, with the belief that it helped the body respond faster and more effectively. People did not think of it as killing bacteria directly. They thought of it as waking up the body's own defenses. Modern research suggests they were on to something. Echinacea has been studied for its potential to support immune function, particularly by increasing the activity of white blood cells and enhancing the body's natural response to pathogens. Some studies indicate that taking echinacea at the onset of a cold may reduce the duration and severity of symptoms. It contains compounds called alkylamides, polysaccharides, and flavonoids, all of which have been linked to immune-modulating effects. While results vary across studies, neither the traditional use aligns with what modern science is beginning to understand about how echinacea interacts with the immune system. People traditionally brewed echinacea root or dried flowers into tea, often combining it with other immune-supporting herbs. Tinctures, which are alcohol-based extracts, became popular because they preserved the plant's active compounds and made it easy to take in small, concentrated doses. Some people today grow echinacea in their gardens, both for its striking purple flowers and for its medicinal roots, which can be harvested after a few years of growth. Echinacea should not be used long-term without breaks, and people with autoimmune conditions should consult a healthcare provider before using it, as it stimulates immune activity. It is not a replacement for antibiotics in serious infections, but as a traditional tool for supporting the body's defenses, echinacea has a long and well-documented history. It is not just a supplement. It is old knowledge growing in modern gardens. Number 3. Oregano, the kitchen protector. Most people know oregano as the herb that makes pizza taste right, but our ancestors knew it as something far more serious. In Mediterranean regions, oregano was used to preserve food, treat digestive infections, and support respiratory health during illness. It was not grown just for flavor. It was grown because it seemed to stop food from spoiling and because it helped people recover when they fell sick. Traditional healers used oregano oil, oregano tea, and fresh oregano leaves in poultices. It was applied to infected wounds, taken internally for stomach troubles, and inhaled as steam for lung congestion. Old recipes for preserved meats and stored foods often included oregano, not just for taste, but because people noticed that food treated with oregano lasted longer without going bad. This was practical observation over generations, long before anyone understood microbial growth. Modern research has validated much of this traditional use. Oregano contains two powerful compounds, carvacrol and thymol. Both have been studied for their antimicrobial properties and have shown the ability to inhibit the growth of bacteria, fungi, and even some parasites. Some studies suggest that oregano oil may be effective against antibiotic-resistant bacteria, which has made it a subject of serious scientific interest. It also contains antioxidants and anti-inflammatory compounds that may support overall health and resilience. People traditionally made oregano tea by steeping fresh or dried leaves in hot water, drinking it for digestive issues or respiratory infections. Oregano oil, which is much more concentrated, was used sparingly, often diluted in a carrier oil for topical use, or taken in very small amounts internally. Some people today use oregano oil capsules, but the oil is potent and should be used with caution. Oregano oil should not be used during pregnancy, and it can irritate the stomach if taken in large amounts. Always dilute it before applying to skin, and never use it as a replacement for medical treatment in serious infections. But as a traditional antimicrobial support, oregano has earned its place in both kitchens and medicine cabinets. Sometimes, the most useful plant is the one everyone stopped noticing. Number 4. Thyme. The respiratory guardian. This small, unassuming herb has been used for thousands of years, not just to season food, but to protect it, preserve it, and treat infections. Ancient people burned thyme as purification smoke, used it in embalming, and brewed it into strong teas for coughs, chest infections, and wounds that would not heal. It was a plant that seemed to fight back against decay, whether in food, in the air, or in the body. Traditional use of thyme was widespread. It was made into syrups for whooping cough, brewed into teas for bronchitis, and used as a wash for infected cuts. Old homesteads kept thyme growing near the kitchen, and bundles of dried thyme were hung indoors, both for preservation and for the belief that it kept illness at bay. Thyme was also used in poultices and steam inhalations, particularly for respiratory illnesses that involved heavy mucus and difficulty breathing. Modern research has identified thymol as thyme's primary active compound, the same substance found in oregano. Thymol has strong antimicrobial and antifungal properties, and studies suggest it may be effective against bacteria that cause respiratory and skin infections. Thyme also contains rosmarinic acid and other antioxidants that may reduce inflammation and support lung health. Some research indicates that thyme extract can help loosen mucus and ease coughing, which aligns with its traditional use for respiratory conditions. People traditionally brewed thyme into tea, often sweetened with honey, and drank it warm for coughs and colds. Thyme-infused honey, made by steeping fresh thyme in raw honey for several weeks, became a popular remedy for sore throats and chest congestion. Steam inhalations with thyme were used to open airways and support breathing during lung infections. Today, thyme is also available as an essential oil, though it should be diluted and used carefully. Thyme oil can irritate mucous membranes and should not be ingested in large amounts. Pregnant women should avoid concentrated thyme preparations. As always, this is not a replacement for professional medical care, but as a traditional support for respiratory health and minor infections. Thyme has proven itself across centuries and continents. Think of it as the plant that helped people breathe easier when breathing became hard. Number 5. Calendula, the wound flower. This is one of those plants most people see as decoration, but our ancestors saw as medicine. Calendula, also called pot marigold, was grown in nearly every practical garden, not for beauty, but because it was considered one of the most reliable plants for treating wounds, burns, rashes, and infections. If someone got cut, scraped, or burned, calendula was often the first thing reached for. Traditional healers used calendula flowers to make salves, oils, teas, and poultices. The fresh or dried petals were infused in oil or animal fat to create healing ointments that were applied to cuts, scrapes, burns, and skin infections. Calendula tea was used as a wash for wounds or taken internally for digestive inflammation. It was valued not just for helping wounds close, but for reducing the risk of infection, which was a constant danger in the days before antibiotics and sterile bandages. Modern research suggests calendula contains flavonoids, triterpenoids, and saponins, compounds that have been studied for their anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial, and wound-healing properties. Some studies indicate that calendula extract may promote faster skin regeneration and reduce bacterial growth on wounds. It has also been researched for its potential to soothe inflamed tissues and support the skin's natural healing processes. Traditional use aligns closely with what modern science is beginning to understand about how calendula interacts with damaged tissue. People traditionally made calendula salve by infusing dried calendula petals in olive oil or another carrier oil for several weeks. Women then straining the oil and mixing it with beeswax to create a thick ointment. This salve was kept in every household and used for cuts, burns, diaper rash, chapped skin, and minor infections. Calendula tea, made by steeping the dried flowers, was used as a gentle wash for inflamed skin or taken internally for digestive support. Calendula is generally considered very safe for external use, though some people may have allergic reactions, particularly if they are sensitive to plants in the daisy family. It should not replace medical care for deep wounds or serious infections, but as a traditional first aid plant, calendula has earned its reputation over centuries of reliable use. It is not just a garden flower. It is old knowledge, blooming in plain sight. If this is making you realize how much old plant knowledge has been forgotten, hit the like button. It helps this video reach people who still believe useful knowledge should not disappear. And if you haven't subscribed yet, join us here for more practical plant wisdom, health science, and self-sufficient living ideas every week. Number 6. Plantain, the wayside healer. Not the banana-like fruit, but the low-growing weed that appears in lawns, pathways, and disturbed soil almost everywhere humans live. You've probably walked past it, mowed over it, or pulled it without knowing that this humble plant was once called the Band-Aid plant, the soldier's herb, and the healing leaf. Traditional people considered plantain one of the most useful plants that grew wild, and they taught their children to recognize it so they would always have medicine nearby. Plantain was used for bee stings, snake bites, infected wounds, cuts, scrapes, and splinters. The fresh leaf was chewed or crushed and applied directly to injuries, often within minutes of the wound occurring. Old first aid knowledge said that plantain could draw out infection, reduce swelling, and speed healing. It was also made into salves, teas, and poultices for burns, rashes, and respiratory infections. Some traditional healers believed plantain could pull poison from bites and stings, which is why it was used so commonly for insect stings and venomous bites. Modern research has identified several compounds in plantain that may explain its traditional use. It contains allantoin, a substance known to promote tissue repair and cell regeneration. It also has aucubin, a compound with antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory properties. Studies suggest that plantain extract may reduce bacterial growth and support wound healing. And some research indicates it may have a soothing effect on irritated mucous membranes, which aligns with its traditional use for coughs and respiratory issues. People traditionally used fresh plantain by crushing the leaves and applying them directly to wounds, stings, or rashes. The crushed leaf releases juices that were believed to stop pain and prevent infection. Plantain salve, made by infusing the leaves in oil, was kept for burns and skin irritations. Plantain tea, made from dried or fresh leaves, was used for coughs, digestive inflammation, and urinary tract support. Plantain is widely considered safe for external and internal use, though proper plant identification is essential, as some look-alike plants are not safe. It should not replace medical care for serious wounds or bites, but as a traditional first aid plant that grows almost everywhere, plantain has been trusted for centuries. It is not just a weed. It is old knowledge growing under your feet. Number 7. Yarrow, the soldier's friend. This plant has a history tied to battlefields, and its name in several languages translates to soldier's woundwort or knight's milfoil. Yarrow was carried by armies, kept in military medical kits, and sewn into bandages because it had a reputation for stopping bleeding and preventing infection. If a soldier was cut or wounded, yarrow was one of the first things applied, and its use in wartime medicine continued for centuries. Traditional healers used yarrow for cuts, wounds, nosebleeds, heavy menstrual bleeding, fevers, and infections. The fresh or dried leaves and flowers were crushed and applied directly to bleeding wounds, where they seemed to help blood clot faster. Yarrow tea was used internally for fevers, colds, and digestive issues, and it was also used as a wash for infected wounds. The plant was valued not just for stopping blood, but for reducing the chance that wounds would become infected, which was a leading cause of death in combat and daily life. Modern research has found that yarrow contains several bioactive compounds, including flavonoids, tannins, and volatile oils, which may have astringent, anti-inflammatory, and antimicrobial properties. Some studies suggest that yarrow extract can promote blood clotting and may have antibacterial effects. It has also been studied for its potential to reduce inflammation and support the immune system's response to infection. Traditional use aligns with what modern science is beginning to understand about yarrow's effects on wounds and immune health. People traditionally used fresh yarrow by crushing the leaves and flowers and pressing them onto bleeding wounds. Yarrow poultices were made by mashing the plant material and applying it under a bandage. Yarrow tea, made by steeping the dried plant in hot water, was used for fevers, colds, and digestive support. Yarrow-infused oil was also used for muscle pain and skin irritations. Yarrow should not be used during pregnancy, and some people may have allergic reactions, especially those sensitive to plants in the daisy family. It should not replace medical care for serious wounds or infections. But as a traditional battlefield medicine and first aid plant, yarrow has a well-documented history of use. Think of it as the plant that helped soldiers survive when survival was not guaranteed. Number 8. Honey, the wound guardian. Honey is not a plant, but it is plant medicine in concentrated form, made by bees from flower nectar and transformed into one of the most reliable antimicrobial substances known to traditional healers. Ancient people used honey to preserve food, treat wounds, soothe coughs, and fight infection, and its use in medicine is documented across nearly every culture that had access to it. Honey was not just food, it was survival medicine. Traditional use of honey focused on wounds, burns, and respiratory infections. Honey was applied directly to cuts, scrapes, and burns, and often covered with a cloth bandage. It was also used for mouth sores, sore throats, and coughs, either taken straight or mixed into teas and syrups. Old military medical texts describe honey being used on battlefields to treat infected wounds, and some ancient surgical texts recommend honey as a wound dressing. People also used honey to preserve medicinal herbs, creating syrups that could last for months or even years. Modern research has confirmed what traditional healers observed. Honey has strong antimicrobial properties due to its low water content, acidic pH, and the presence of hydrogen peroxide, which forms naturally in honey. It also contains enzymes, antioxidants, and plant compounds that may support wound healing and reduce inflammation. Studies indicate that honey, particularly medical-grade honey like Manuka, worm can inhibit the growth of bacteria, including antibiotic-resistant strains like MRSA. It has also been shown to promote tissue repair and reduce scarring. People traditionally used raw, unprocessed honey, as heating or filtering reduces its medicinal properties. For wounds, a thin layer of honey was applied directly to the cleaned wound and covered with a bandage, which was changed daily. For coughs and sore throats, honey was taken by the spoonful or mixed into warm water or herbal tea. Honey-based syrups, made by infusing herbs like thyme or garlic into honey, were used for respiratory infections. Honey should not be given to infants under 1 year old due to the risk of botulism. For wounds, medical-grade honey is recommended, as it is sterilized and tested for purity. Honey should not replace professional medical care for serious infections or deep wounds, but as a traditional antimicrobial and wound-healing agent, honey has thousands of years of reliable use behind it. It is not just sweetness, it is survival knowledge stored in jars. Number 9. Sage, the throat protector. Sage has been used for so long that its name comes from a word meaning to heal or to save. Ancient people burned sage as purification smoke, used it to preserve meat, and brewed it into teas for sore throats, mouth infections, and respiratory illnesses. It was a plant that seemed to protect against decay, whether in food, in the air, or in the body, and it was valued particularly for issues involving the mouth, throat, and lungs. Traditional healers used sage for sore throats, gum infections, tonsillitis, laryngitis, haunts, and coughs. Sage tea was used as a gargle for throat infections and mouth sores, and it was also drunk for fevers, digestive issues, and night sweats. Sage was made into poultices for infected wounds and used as a wash for skin infections. It was also burned as smoke, both for ceremonial purposes and because people believed the smoke had cleansing properties. Modern research has identified several active compounds in sage, including rosmarinic acid, thujone, and volatile oils, which have been studied for their antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, and antioxidant properties. Some studies suggest that sage extract can inhibit the growth of bacteria and fungi, and it has been researched for its potential to soothe inflamed mucous membranes in the mouth and throat. Sage also contains compounds that may support cognitive function and reduce excessive sweating, which aligns with some of its traditional uses. People traditionally made sage tea by steeping fresh or dried leaves in hot water, then using it as a gargle for sore throats, or drinking it for respiratory support. Sage-infused honey was used for coughs, and sage poultices were applied to wounds. Today, sage is also available as an essential oil and in throat lozenges, though the oil should be used with caution. Sage should not be used in large medicinal amounts during pregnancy or while breastfeeding, as it may reduce milk production. Thujone, a compound in sage, can be toxic in very large doses, so sage should be used in moderation. It should not replace medical care for serious infections. But as a traditional throat and respiratory support, sage has been trusted for centuries. Think of it as the plant that helped people speak and breathe when infection tried to silence them. Number 10. Ginger. The stomach defender. Ginger has been used for thousands of years, not just as a spice, but as a medicinal root that seemed to settle stomachs, fight nausea, reduce inflammation, and support the body during illness. Ancient traders carried ginger across continents, and it became valuable enough to be used as currency in some regions. It was not grown just for flavor. It was grown because it worked. Traditional use of ginger focused on digestive issues, nausea, colds, and pain. It was made into teas, chewed raw, cooked into foods, and used in poultices for joint pain and muscle soreness. Ginger was given to people suffering from motion sickness, morning sickness, and food poisoning. It was also used during colds and respiratory infections, both for its warming properties and because it seemed to help the body fight back against illness. Some traditional healers used ginger externally as a warming compress for pain and inflammation. Modern research has identified gingerol and shogaol as ginger's primary active compounds, both of which have been studied for their anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and antimicrobial properties. Studies suggest that ginger can reduce nausea and vomiting, support digestive function, and may help reduce pain and inflammation. Some research indicates that ginger extract has antibacterial effects and may support the immune system's response to infection. It has also been studied for its potential to reduce muscle soreness and support cardiovascular health. People traditionally made ginger tea by slicing fresh ginger root and simmering it in water, often sweetened with honey. Raw ginger was chewed for nausea or added to meals for digestive support. Ginger poultices, made by grating fresh ginger and wrapping it in cloth, were applied to painful joints or sore muscles. Today, ginger is available in capsules, powders, and candied forms. Though fresh ginger root is still considered the most potent, ginger is generally safe in culinary amounts, but large medicinal doses may interact with blood-thinning medications and should be used cautiously by people with bleeding disorders. Pregnant women should consult a healthcare provider before using large amounts of ginger. It should not replace medical care, but as a traditional digestive and immune support, ginger has proven itself across cultures and centuries. It is not just a spice, it is old knowledge growing in roots. Number 11. Elderberry. The immune shield. Elder trees have been called the medicine chest of the countryside, and for good reason. Nearly every part of the elder tree was used traditionally, but the berries and flowers were especially valued for treating colds, flu, respiratory infections, and fevers. Elderberry syrup was kept in homes the way people today keep cough medicine, and it was given at the first sign of illness, particularly during the cold months when respiratory infections spread quickly. Traditional healers used elderberry for colds, flu, sinus infections, bronchitis, and fevers. The berries were cooked into syrups, jams, and teas, while the flowers were made into teas and tinctures. Elderberry was believed to help the body sweat out fevers, clear congestion, and recover faster from illness. It was also used as a general immune tonic, taken regularly during winter to support the body's defenses. Elder flowers were used for their cooling and anti-inflammatory properties, particularly for fevers and inflamed respiratory passages. Modern research has found that elderberries are rich in anthocyanins, powerful antioxidants that have been studied for their immune-supporting and antiviral properties. Some studies suggest that elderberry extract may reduce the duration and severity of colds and flu by supporting the immune system's response to viral infections. Elderberry has also been researched for its potential to reduce inflammation and support respiratory health. Traditional use aligns closely with what modern science is beginning to understand about elderberry's effects on the immune system. People traditionally made elderberry syrup by simmering fresh or dried berries with water, straining the liquid, and sweetening it with honey. This syrup was taken by the spoonful at the first sign of illness, or used as a daily immune tonic during cold season. Elderflower tea, made by steeping the dried flowers, was used for fevers and respiratory congestion. Today, elderberry is widely available in syrups, gummies, and capsules. Raw elderberries contain compounds that can cause nausea and should not be eaten uncooked. Always cook elderberries before use. The bark, roots, and leaves of the elder tree are not safe for internal use. Elderberry should not replace medical care for serious infections, but as a traditional immune support, elderberry has a long and well-documented history. Think of it as the plant that helped families survive winter when winter brought sickness. Number 12. Tea tree. The skin defender. This plant is native to Australia, where indigenous people used it for thousands of years to treat wounds, skin infections, and respiratory issues. Early settlers learned from them and began using tea tree leaves in much the same way. The leaves were crushed and applied to cuts, used in steam inhalations, and made into strong washes for infected skin. Tea tree did not become widely known outside Australia until the 20th century, but once it did, it quickly became one of the most studied antimicrobial plants. Traditional use of tea tree focused on skin infections, cuts, scrapes, fungal infections, and respiratory congestion. The crushed leaves were applied directly to wounds or made into poultices. Tea tree-infused water was used as a wash for infected skin, and the leaves were added to steam inhalations for coughs and colds. Indigenous healers also used tea tree for insect bites, rashes, and sores that would not heal. Modern research has identified tea tree oil as one of the most potent natural antimicrobial agents. It contains terpenin 4-ol and other compounds that have been studied for their ability to kill bacteria, fungi, and some viruses. Studies suggest that tea tree oil is effective against acne-causing bacteria, fungal infections like athlete's foot, whorl, and even some antibiotic-resistant bacteria. It has also been researched for its anti-inflammatory properties and its ability to support wound healing. Traditional use aligns with what modern science has confirmed about tea tree's antimicrobial effects. People traditionally used fresh tea tree leaves, but today, tea tree essential oil is more common. The oil should always be diluted before applying to skin, as it is very concentrated and can cause irritation. A few drops in a carrier oil can be used for acne, fungal infections, or minor cuts. Tea tree oil is also added to homemade cleaning products for its antimicrobial properties. Tea tree oil should never be ingested, as it is toxic when swallowed. It should be diluted before skin application and tested on a small area first. Some people may have allergic reactions. It should not replace medical care for serious infections, but as a traditional and scientifically supported antimicrobial for skin issues, tea tree has earned its reputation. It is not just an oil. It is old knowledge extracted from leaves. Number 13. Turmeric, the golden healer. Turmeric has been used for thousands of years, particularly in South and Southeast Asia, where it was valued not just as a spice, but as a healing root for wounds, infections, digestive issues, and inflammation. It was used in food, applied to skin, made into pastes, and taken as medicine. Traditional healers considered turmeric one of their most versatile tools, and its bright yellow color made it easy to recognize and use. Traditional use of turmeric included treating wounds, skin infections, digestive inflammation, joint pain, lung and respiratory issues. Turmeric paste was applied to cuts and burns to prevent infection and promote healing. It was mixed into warm milk and taken for colds and coughs. Turmeric was also used for digestive complaints, particularly those involving inflammation or infection. In some traditions, turmeric was used as a blood purifier and liver tonic. Modern research has identified curcumin as turmeric's primary active compound, and it has been studied extensively for its anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and antimicrobial properties. Some studies suggest that curcumin may inhibit the growth of bacteria, fungi, and viruses, and it has been researched for its potential to support immune function and reduce chronic inflammation. Turmeric has also been studied for its effects on joint health, digestive health, and even cognitive function. Traditional use aligns with what modern science is beginning to understand about curcumin's wide-ranging effects. People traditionally used fresh turmeric root, grating or pounding it into a paste for topical use, or cooking it into foods and drinks. Turmeric milk, made by heating milk with turmeric, black pepper, and honey, was a common remedy for colds and inflammation. Turmeric paste was applied to wounds and skin infections. Today, turmeric is available in powders, capsules, and extracts, though fresh root is still considered potent. Turmeric is generally safe in culinary amounts, but large medicinal doses may interact with blood-thinning medications and should be used cautiously by people with gallbladder issues. Black pepper is often added to turmeric preparations because it increases curcumin absorption. Turmeric should not replace medical care, but as a traditional anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial support, turmeric has thousands of years of use behind it. Think of it as the root that helped people heal when healing was hard to come by. Number 14. Eucalyptus. The breathing helper. Eucalyptus trees are native to Australia, where indigenous people use the leaves for wounds, infections, fevers, and respiratory illnesses long before European contact. Early settlers learned these uses and began incorporating eucalyptus into their own medicine, particularly for coughs, colds, and lung congestion. The strong, penetrating scent of eucalyptus became associated with relief from breathing difficulties, and it was used in hospitals, homes, and even carried by soldiers during wartime. Traditional use of eucalyptus focused on respiratory infections, fevers, wounds, and muscle pain. The leaves were crushed and inhaled, made into steam inhalations, brewed into teas, and applied as poultices. Eucalyptus was used for bronchitis, asthma, sinus infections, and any condition that made breathing difficult. It was also applied to wounds and sore muscles, and some traditional healers used eucalyptus for fevers and headaches. Modern research has identified eucalyptol, also called cineole, as eucalyptus's primary active compound. Eucalyptol has been studied for its antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, and expectorant properties, meaning it may help loosen mucus and ease breathing. Some studies suggest that eucalyptus oil can inhibit bacterial and viral growth, and it has been researched for its potential to support respiratory health and reduce inflammation in the airways. Traditional use aligns with what modern science has confirmed about eucalyptus's effects on the respiratory system. People traditionally used eucalyptus leaves in steam inhalations, adding crushed leaves to hot water and breathing the vapors to clear congestion. Eucalyptus tea was made by steeping the leaves, though it is very strong and should be used sparingly. Eucalyptus oil, which is highly concentrated, was diluted and applied to the chest or added to steam. Today, eucalyptus oil is widely available and used in vapor rubs, diffusers, and cleaning products. Eucalyptus oil should never be ingested as it is toxic when swallowed. It should be diluted before applying to skin and it should not be used on or near the faces of young children, as it can cause respiratory distress. It should not replace medical care for serious respiratory infections, but as a traditional support for breathing difficulties, eucalyptus has a well-established history. It is not just a scent. It is old knowledge carried on the air. Number 15. Chamomile. The calming protector, chamomile, is often thought of as a bedtime tea, but its traditional use went far beyond helping people sleep. Ancient people used chamomile for digestive infections, wound healing, skin inflammation, eye infections, and anxiety. It was one of the most commonly grown medicinal plants in home gardens. Valued for its gentleness and reliability, chamomile was considered safe enough for children and elders, and yet effective enough to treat real problems. Traditional healers used chamomile for stomach infections, diarrhea, gas, nausea, infected wounds, skin rashes, eye infections, and inflamed mucous membranes. Chamomile tea was drunk for digestive issues and used as a wash for wounds and skin irritations. Chamomile compresses were applied to inflamed eyes, and chamomile baths were used for skin conditions. It was also used for teething pain in infants and menstrual cramps in women. The plant was valued not just for what it did, but for how gently it worked. Modern research has found that chamomile contains apigenin, bisabolol, and other compounds that have been studied for their anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial, and calming properties. Some studies suggest that chamomile extract can inhibit bacterial growth, reduce inflammation, and support digestive health. It has also been researched for its potential to reduce anxiety, support sleep, and promote wound healing. Traditional use aligns with what modern science is beginning to understand about chamomile's wide-ranging effects. People traditionally made chamomile tea by steeping dried flowers in hot water, drinking it for digestive issues, anxiety, or sleep support. Chamomile was also used as a wash for wounds, added to baths for skin irritation, and applied as a warm compress for eye infections. Chamomile-infused oil was used for skin inflammation and baby care. Today, chamomile is widely available in teas, tinctures, and topical products. Chamomile is generally considered very safe, though people allergic to plants in the daisy family should use caution. It should not replace medical care for serious infections, but as a traditional gentle antimicrobial and calming support, chamomile has been trusted across cultures for thousands of years. Think of it as the plant that helped people rest and recover when they needed it most. The real lesson here is not that ancient people knew everything. It is that they paid attention. They watched what grew around them, what helped and what harmed, what healed and what failed. They did not have laboratories or clinical trials, but they had generations of observation, and they passed down what worked. These plants were not chosen randomly. They were chosen because they proved themselves, season after season, illness, wound. They were the plants that grew reliably, that could be harvested and stored, that did not require wealth or access to distant markets. They were survival knowledge growing in backyards. Modern research is now confirming much of what traditional people observed, revealing the compounds and mechanisms that explain why these plants worked. But the plants themselves have not changed. They are still growing, still available, still carrying the same properties that made them valuable centuries ago. The difference is that most people today no longer recognize them. Start with one plant from this list. Learn it properly. Learn how to identify it, grow it, harvest it, and use it safely. Read about it. Grow it if you can. Notice it when you see it. That is how old knowledge comes back, not through lectures or videos, but through direct experience with the plants themselves. Drop a comment and tell me which plant surprised you most, or which one you want to learn about next. And if you want more forgotten plant wisdom, practical health science, and self-sufficient living ideas, subscribe now, and I'll see you in the next video.